Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Toronto International Film Festival's Industry Conference. My name is Neil McPherson. I'm the Associate Programme of the conference, and it gives me great pleasure to be able to introduce the first of 3 TELEFILM Canada's Talent to Watch sessions taking place as part of the conference. As the title suggests, these events are presented by TELEFILM Canada, and we are hugely grateful for them for all the support they provide the TIFF conference. And we have 2 more Talent to Watch sessions taking place, one tomorrow morning at 10:15, which will look at how best to monetize your film internationally, and another on Monday afternoon at 1 p.m, which will examine the opportunities for Canadian films in the US market. I hope you'll be able to join us for those. Before we get started, I'd like to remind everyone to ensure that their cell phones are turned to silent and let you know that there's absolutely no photography or filming permitted during this event. You don't need to film anything because we are actually doing it for you. This session will be available on YouTube directly after the event. I'd now like to introduce TELEFILM's Director of National Promotions and Communications, Francesca Accinelli.
Good afternoon, everybody. It's a pleasure for me to be here, and welcome to Breaking In and Staying In, the art of staying alive as a filmmaker, the first of TELEFILM Canada's 3 Talent to Watch panels that were just discussed. I am excited to bring you our 6th edition, this forum for us to be able to bring you different types of discussions to either spark new ways of communicating, to inspire you, to scare you maybe a little bit, to do a bit more, is exactly why we partner with TIFF to present Talent to Watch. At TELEFILM Canada, we are focused on supporting Canadian emerging talent, most notably our micro-budget production program, which funds filmmakers in production and the release of their first feature, with an emphasis on digital platforms. As a result, a new generation of diverse filmmakers are on the Canadian and foreign film festival circuit. Last year, L'Adept, directed by Sonia Bonspil-Boileau, screened at Karlovy-Vary International Film Festival. In June, Connor Gaston's The Devout and Amy Jo Johnson's The Space Between both screened at the Shanghai International Film Festival. And Werewolf by Ashley Mackenzie just premiered last night at TIFF. And I just saw in the Toronto Life magazine that it was named one of the 6 indie films to watch. So amazing success with an incredible new generation for us to follow. We're also focused on promoting Canadian talent and the industry at large. And I encourage you, I have to do my promotional plug, I encourage you to pick up this variety insert. It will tell you all the amazing talent that are here at TIFF today. Sorry, I'm skipping because he said everything I was going to say, which is brilliant. I am going to go on to what's most important. I would like to now welcome back Richard Krause as the Talent to Watch moderator today. Richard has partnered with TELEFILM on other initiatives, including as a juror for our annual Burke's Diamond tribute to this year's Women in Film. He is a regular film critic for CTV's News Channel and CP24. He was the host of Reel to Reel, Canada's longest-running television show about movies from 1998 and 2008, and I'm a giant fan. He is a syndicated Saturday afternoon radio show, The Richard Krause Show, and originates on News Talk 1010 in Toronto. And he is also the author of 6 books on pop culture. No doubt Richard's love of film and his entrepreneurial spirit make him an ideal person to be leading this discussion on how to endure as a filmmaker and how to get great films to the market. Richard?
Welcome. Nice to see you all, or kind of see you all. I can see 3 or 4 people in the front here. We have some very interesting panelists to introduce you to. Kim Nguyen was born in Montreal. His features include Marais, Rebelle, screened both at the festival. His other films include Cité and the documentary L'Aisne. 2 Lovers and a Bear is his latest feature. Help me welcome Kim and have a look at a clip from the film. Good to see you.
Hi.
fantastic. Fantastic looking. Our next guest is April Mullen. She was born in Niagara Falls, Ontario. She studied theatre at Ryerson University in Toronto and the Royal Welsh College of Drama in Cardiff. She has directed and acted in Dead Before Dawn 3D, 88, and Farhope Tower. Below Her Mouth is her latest feature. Let's welcome April and have a look at a clip. And our third guest, and Nathan Morlando, was born in Toronto and holds a master's degree in philosophy. His film Edwin Boyd, Citizen Gangster, won the Best Canadian First Feature Prize at the festival. Mean Dreams is his second feature. Please help me welcome Nathan, and we'll have a look at a clip. First of all, congratulations on all the films. And do we, Kim, I'll start with you. Do you want to just set things up a little bit about the film, tell people you can see it at TIFF this year? Maybe you want to go and grab a ticket. Tell us a little bit about the film.
Yeah, so it's basically the story of these two kids from the South who ended up living up north near the North Pole in the Arctic. And they have their inner demons, and they're trying to find a way to heal themselves from these demons. And they go out in the Great White, and that journey becomes kind of an inner journey to to heal themselves in a way. And that's where Tatiana and Dane come in to try and deliver that.
And April?
Blow Her Mouth is about two women who accidentally make contact and then have a love affair over the span of 3 days, and their lives change dramatically forever. And that's it. It's about desire, love, sex, and freedom.
And Nathan?
Mean Dreams is a coming-of-age crime thriller about two teens who fall in love in rural North America. And the boy soon realizes that there's some wrongdoing going on at her home, and that she needs rescuing from. And so together they run away, and her father hunts them down.
And all three so stylish, so beautiful, so congratulations. The thing that they have in common is that they are not your first film, and that's what we're here to talk about. We're here to talk about what happens when you have a film at a festival, or you manage to cobble together enough money to make your first movie, and it gets out, and you get a little bit of notoriety, and you're lucky enough to be able to make a second, third, and at whatever stage we're at here. How do you deal with the heightened expectation that comes along with a film with the next film, the next project? In each of these clips, we saw, quotes that said "a beautiful sense of style." So, it's a business of hype, and you have to live up to it. You have to come to grips with it somehow. Kim, I'll start with you. How do you do that?
I guess through the films that I did, through some successes and some failures within the film, or from film to film. I guess the way I tried to cope with doing the next film is to try to be as fearless as possible and not worry too much about the expectations of the industry, but at the same time trying to make the film for a spectator, which is kind of me as a spectator. What kind of film would I like to see as a spectator? But that fearlessness is really important to keep your instincts, to be able to be on the set each day and try to be, connected to the present moment. I think that's really, really important.
It's interesting that you mention fearlessness in terms of this, because often I have seen in people's careers, as they're taking steps up the rung with larger and larger budgets, it means that there's more and more people involved, and you actually don't have the chance to be as fearless. Yeah. Because there's more money involved. You have to start thinking, oh, will this play in, X, Y, and Z? And you, it seems that is almost counterintuitive. But you're saying, forget it.
The first thing that I must admit is that when staying alive and making it in business, coming in here last week, I was trying to think about it, and there's no specific answer. That's got to be true.
Yeah.
But there's that element of accepting that you might fail. The acceptance of the possibility of failure is extremely important to take more risks, I think. But at the same time, let's say I'm gonna do a long take for a scene. Of course, I will do I will try to do an insert of a cutaway. Or I'll figure out a way that I can kind of mix and match two different long sequences with a let's say I make sure that there's a straight wall so that I combine it in post-production. So I do cover my ass. But at the same time, what my thought process of going to the limits of what I think this should be is still there. Go all the way.
Interesting. You also say please yourself. Be fearless. Please yourself. I write books. And I always think, if I like the idea from my book, there'll be at least 10,000 other people out there that will like it as well. And so I've always looked inward and never really given too much thought to
you as a spectator. Me
as a spectator. I treat myself as the audience for my book. April, I'll ask the same question to you.
Personally, I just tend to never compare any project with another, because when you're reading the material for the first time and observing it, if you connect to it, you just become immersed in it and fall in love with it. So as soon as I embark on a new project, I just full throttle forward on that new project. So I never really tend to look back, because there's no real point. What's done is done. And in terms of expectations, I'm so invested in the creation and the adrenaline rush of creating something new that I tend to forget the outcome. I'm just gunning for, you know, any kind of sparks and magic that I can find on screen, and then the finish line happens, and it's just sort of, the outcome is the outcome. And if people love it, which I'm conscious of the whole time, I hope they do, but I'm so enwrapped in the material and the script and the actors and being on set and then the cutting and the music, I tend to forget about the rest.
What happens after?
Yeah.
What happens afterwards, the life that it will have at festivals and in front of audiences. Does the reaction of the audience, it hasn't played yet, right?
No, it's tonight.
It's tonight.
I have so many butterflies right now.
Yeah. Fingers, everyone cross your fingers
I know.
tonight. Pardon me. So the reaction of the audience tonight, obviously, we hope that it's rapturous. Does it matter to you, though? Because you feel you've made a film that you're pleased with.
There will always be polarizing.
Yeah.
And I think critics each have their own personal ideas. It's so hard to pinpoint what makes certain people fall in love with a film or out of love with one. It's just a very personal experience. So if there are few people in our audience that were able to change their lives forever and maybe allow them to step outside of their comfort zones or change their perception on love and lust and feel more comfortable with their sexuality, I feel like we've attained our goal. So whether it's on a small scale with an individual person or whether it's on a large scale, films are made to make impacts, and whether they're large or small at the time, right now, to me, it's, you know, they both mean so much to me.
Nathan, Citizen Gangster, Edwin Boyd came with a great deal of expectation, was a hit at the festival, people loved it, it did very well in the theaters. How does that play on your head as you're stepping in to make Mean Dreams?
I try not to think about the outcome of the film because I think it can just make you insane. Yeah. You know, and the business is difficult enough.
Yeah.
You know, and you've got to stay focused on the project, and you've got to stay focused on your team. And so I think, you know, I think for all of us, any filmmaker, the struggle is deep. So if you're doing it because there's nothing else you want to do.
Right.
So that keeps you going. And that's why we do it. You know, we just keep doing it regardless of, you know, we make our films for audiences. We need good reviews, especially at the indie level, because we need all the help we can get to promote the film, because we don't have the budgets for advertising.
Right.
So we're very dependent on positive reviews. But at the same time, for me anyway, I try not to. I have my team read the reviews. I try to not do that because it can hurt or it can be great. But then if it's great and you get used to needing that, then it's going to hurt eventually. If it's not this year, it's going to be next year. If it's not next year, it's going to happen, right? So I try not to go down that path. And I just keep telling myself, this is Walt Whitman poem, you know, march to the beat of your own drum.
Right.
You know, you don't compare, and it's not a competition. It's just you're doing what you're doing because you need to express whatever it is you need to express at this time in your life. Yeah. And you make it with a passionate team, and everyone's having, hopefully, fun through the struggle. And you make a wish for it, you know, that it will affect people in the way that you hope.
It's interesting you mentioned reviews, because I wasn't necessarily thinking of critics. When I was thinking of this, when critics come up, I'm a film critic, I write about movies and speak about them on television. And, you know, it doesn't matter what I say about Suicide Squad. It doesn't matter, or Captain America, or any of those movies, right? I do think, though, that the place of film criticism is in the realm of the films that you're making. These can be a way of pushing audiences towards a film that they may otherwise not find. And Nathan, you've discussed your relationship with critics. Kim, tell me a little bit about yours. Do you read them? Do you care? How does it work with you?
Well, I can't help myself but to go through them. I don't read them in depth. But one thing, I do find that there's one thing that's a privilege when you get selected in a higher profile festival, is that you get, even if they didn't like your film, it's a thoughtful review. They send, because it's I don't know, like they get the experienced critiques, and it's not something personal or just like generic. It's really something that actually, from time to time, after you've swallowed the pill, it can be a learning process. I do think that when it's made in a really, when it's made in a thoughtful way.
And you've had, I mean, Two Lovers and a Bear just came from Cannes. Congratulations on that. And the reviews were lovely.
Yes, we did, and of course we had like interesting comments on their thoughts on the structure and on the magic realism elements, and that's great. That's great to have that conversation.
Yeah. And April, your relationship with film criticism, do you breathe it in or no?
I find that the scale on which people compare films is really drastically different, and it's interesting when you're reviewing an independent film because the story behind the camera to me is more exciting, and the audience, when you're picking up a newspaper and reading what's happening, and you read, like you said, a review for a big budget blockbuster film, and then you read a review for like $1 million shot, amazing Canadian feature, we're compared the same way, and we're reviewed the same way. So I wish that they were kinder to the smaller films in a way, but I don't think that will ever happen. But it's just because audiences don't know the difference. They don't know what goes on in an independent film. To get that film made is like an extreme struggle versus, the factory of films that come out with a much larger budget. So that's a really...
But I think having, in some ways, and I'm not a filmmaker, so I maybe disagree if you'd like, but by having your film reviewed on the same page as everything else, I mean, it's not being pushed aside to the back pages. It's not being, in that way, I think it's okay.
It's okay.
Yeah.
Yes, it is okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Now, the secrets to not just surviving, but thriving. As you mentioned, these are difficult films, or can be difficult films to get made. And, Kim, you can tell us maybe when you said, hey, listen, I want a whole bunch of money to make a movie about a talking polar bear, the reaction that you got from people. So, tell me, each of you, if you have tips towards the idea of not just getting by, not just putting one foot in front of the other and stepping through, but to thriving in this, because you're all here with great films at one of the biggest film festivals in the world. That's an amazing feat. How do you work beyond that? How do you thrive beyond that?
I had an interesting transition. I did my two last films are the one I'm finishing now and Two Lovers and a Bear are in English, and it's quite different with the Quebec funding system.
Right.
And but in the English side, I do think that the one thing, there's kind of a triangle, which is the script, the actor, and the director, but script and director are basically a means to get the actor. So, so when people say, okay, this is the funding and all of that, basically I would say that, the key element is to have access to cast for distribution. I don't know if it's a good thing or not. It's the way I perceive it right now. Once you go beyond $4 or $5 million budgets, that's really a key element.
But having Tatiana Maslany and Dane DeHaan in this film, and Gordon Pinson as the voice, that goes a long way. Right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, starting with this film, and kind of, it's really exciting to try to find up-and-coming talent. It's kind of like the stock market, it's going to go high, but you buy like just the week before, so that like after that. So I find that for Tat and Dane, it's kind of like that. I think that Tatiana is gonna go in the stratosphere. Yeah. She's an amazing actress, really, and coming off of. I didn't think about her from the. She did an amazing screen test, but I didn't make the connection between Orphan Black and that movie, but she was just amazing.
And April, for you, the idea, because now you've got, is it 4 films now?
I think this is lucky number 7.
No, lucky number 7. Four that I mentioned. So how do you thrive then?
I was going to say, I'll speak to the younger filmmakers in terms of getting your first film made, because I think that's the most difficult one and perhaps the most daunting one, and that's when funding agencies aren't responding to your material and don't know who you are, so knocking on the door is like non-existent at the beginning. So finding a team, staying focused, and just creating your own work, I think, is crucial. And then after the film is made, it's very hard to be noticed on those pages while you're turning through, watching, comparisons with all those things. And in our younger days, my producing partner, Tim Dorn, and I dressed up before Borat happened in our costumes, and we did a rock, paper, scissors world championships across the country, and really did an out-of-the-box marketing thing to get an independent film noticed. So,
And did you four-wall the film? Did you rent theaters?
We did.
Yeah, in each one, yeah.
and so we went to every province and tied it into a unique marketing spin and an angle, which now, this was ages ago, but now I think social media and what the young filmmakers have access to, there's a way to make your film stand out and a way to get your film made and watched and noticed. And I think thinking creatively out of the box is something that's refreshing and exciting for young filmmakers to bring to the table.
I think Ingrid Veninger is someone that we can look to as someone that has really taken that approach and makes each of her films, which she makes for, extremely small amounts of money, but she gets them out there and worldwide audiences find them because she's so good at making sure that you know that she has a new film out, and Nathan, for you?
Well, both of my films have been financed through Canada mostly. This last film had some American financing, but as we know, it's a very special system, and not every country in the world has TELEFILM and OMDC. And so I urge, all first-time filmmakers, especially, every filmmaker, to seek out these great funding bodies, because there's a great team of people there and they welcome everyone.
Right.
You can really, anybody can get into the door there and take a meeting, and it's a really smart group of people. And they really want to help. That's what they're there for. And their attitude is really positive and nurturing. So that's what I would encourage, because it's really hard. It's really hard to make a film. But there are opportunities here that can make it easier. And it's very special. So, it's still very competitive, but it's always competitive, but there are opportunities. And the other thing is, what Kim was saying too, you need good talent. Mm-hmm. And so you need to nurture relationships with agents, other filmmakers, somehow introduce yourself to other filmmakers and try to get them to introduce you to their talent. Right. Because filmmakers, I think, are very, very generous and will always share information.
Not always true.
Yeah,
not always.
To reach out to me.
Well, but there's enough out there for sure that will take a coffee with you, right?
Yeah.
So that's been my good fortune. There's always a senior director and a producer who's always willing to take a coffee and help out.
April, your films have played at film festivals, and they are this year. Are film festivals a way of doing exactly that, meeting people, getting your name and your word around a little bit in a way that may be a little easier because everybody's here at one sense? So have you used film festivals in that way?
Definitely. I think the spotlight on the film helps tremendously. And you also get introduced, like you said, to other filmmakers and like-minded people, and that's always so beneficial.
Yeah.
Yeah. And to speak to the funding bodies, also there's so many different levels now. There's micro-budget, there's all different levels of funding, which is a phenomenal thing that we have in Canada, because I think we have one of the healthiest funding systems.
Yeah, a film like Werewolf, $250,000 film about meth addicts in Cape Breton likely would not have been funded other than, for a micro-budget film.
I wanted to add just one thing about casting. I do see some colleagues that are coming out of the advertisement and music video and trying to make the bridge to feature filmmaking, and they often hit a wall because they didn't deliver at least one film with powerful, genuine acting performances, right. And they can't convince the cast to follow up on that, and institutions as well. They can be wary if there's only beautiful images, but there's not amazing talent that's been demonstrated.
If there's no heart to it, yeah. Now, we've talked a little bit about money, we've talked about telefilm, micro-budget films, that sort of thing. And April, perhaps I'll start with you. Have you gone outside that system to fund films? So perhaps telefilm has not given you money, or they've only given you a little bit. How have you raised other films or other funds?
So each film has been completely unique onto its own. I'll just give a quick example of each. So rock, paper, scissors the way of the tosser because we were completely unknown. We funded on our own, but we did step in for alternative distribution. So that cross-country tour that we did was through TELEFILM Canada, which was very helpful. So they came in on board after we had proven that we, made a film. So they
So
still
no money for the
supported.
film itself,
No.
but the marketing on the other end, which may be actually, kind of great,
Check that
right?
out.
Yeah, maybe you write that down.
Yeah. So if you make a film, there is funding to support your film afterwards, which is important to get it noticed. And then for Dead Before Dawn 3D, we also did some pre-sales internationally, and same as 88, we pre-sold the US. So it was a combo, OMDC, telefilm, tax credits, and then we either pre-sold TV or Canadian distribution or international or sometimes US.
Do you have, for a lot of the stuff, the money stuff starts to all kind of just sound like a hum to me after a while, like a drone. Only because I don't
It's
understand
true.
it. Only because I don't really, it's so complex and it can be so difficult. And you're getting little bits of money here and there and here and there that I don't really often understand it. So tell me, for each of you, are your brains split between the creative side and then there's the money side, or which side? Do you have to have both to make films in this country?
I think this is where you need a good producer, because
Yeah.
that's generally a producer's job. And in some cases, directors produce their own film. I haven't had that experience. I've had the good fortune of having a great producer. Right. And that's really the producer's job. And there are some people who are just really fantastic at that, you know. So again, urging filmmakers, try to find out who's producing, who's hungry, who's looking for the next project. If you've got a script, because there's people out there who have those contacts too, and they'll help you raise the money. So I think perhaps you've produced your own work as well. Yeah. So that's a very difficult task.
It's a full-time, you have a producing partner that you've worked with for years.
Yes.
But it's such a daunting
Like
thing.
when you said your brain is split in two, yes, it is. But then it makes you very thoughtful, budget-wise. Like you can come in for a work to hire or, TV episodes. You're very, very conscious of where to spend your money, how to get the biggest bang for your buck, and put everything on the screen. So because you come at it from every different angle, you're very conscientious of where your funding is going and where your dollars count and when to really make a splash on the screen.
And that is perhaps, in a roundabout way, the answer to the question, how do you thrive, is where the dollars go, in a lot of ways, right? Yeah. This film, Two Lovers and a Bear, must have been challenging in terms of the location that it was shot in, and the story is, as I was saying to you backstage, the themes are kind of universal, but the story is very specific, and it's in a very specific place. After the heat of your last film, I get it. You want to do something, but it must have been daunting a little bit. It must have been hard, right?
It was hugely physically demanding. I was the one that was perhaps one of the least exposed to the cold, but as you can imagine, we have a couple of explosions in our explosives department. It was supposed to take 30 minutes to wire it all up and blow up something in the Arctic. We really brought the explosive in Iqaluit and through with planes and all of that. And why is it taking so long? And I went because it was 2 hours into just before doing the shot. And Kim, look at these wires. He had 70 little wires, and it was -40 plus the wind chill that was bringing it to -70. Look at my fingers, they're white. I have to heat them in between each wire, and I have 70 of them, so I'm doing all I can, man, but I already can't feel my fingers since the beginning of the set. I'm gonna lose one, so just give me a little bit more time, all right? So I didn't go through that.
And you're
but
you can make do with 9 fingers.
Yeah, exactly, come on. You wanna do movies or not?
So in each film that you make, each subsequent film that you make, are you taking a step up in budget every time? And I suppose, or I'll ask, is that an important thing?
Not necessarily.
No.
It depends on the project, I think,
Right.
and how much you think you can make it for.
Right.
Because you're always strapped for money, I think. You always want more money and more days, but you just kind of go with it. This project came to me last April, and I wanted to be shooting, when I read the script, I wanted to be shooting in the fall, because it was important for me to have the background changing. So there was very little time to raise money, you know. And fortunately, my two producers pulled off a miracle within just a couple of months, and we went for it. But it was a budget that was really, really challenging, and much more challenging actually than my first film. But if I had waited to get the budget to a level that I really wanted, and I believe we could have achieved, we would have missed the fall.
Yeah, or you would have been a year out.
That's exactly. We would have lost a year.
Yeah.
So it was either make the film or wait a year, and we just said, let's go for it. And we did it. So, but we hired an incredible team of passionate crew, you know, that again responded very passionately to the script and responded passionately to the vision. And so we got fantastic crew that worked well below their normal average, which is always a gift, you know, to any team. And you kind of just go for it. You know, it's that same attitude of just like, let's all go do what we want to do, you know, and we did that. So.
And for you, April?
I would say it's always great to challenge yourself and aim bigger and go up the ladder slowly and start slow and go all the way up. But I also really find it refreshing to go backwards sometimes and reimagine what it was like with a lot less.
For the challenge.
A lot less tools. Yeah, just because it forces you to think in new ways and grow artistically and maybe step outside of your comfort zone and reminds you that your toolbox is a lot more vast than you originally intended. And you learn a lot by doing that, by bouncing back and forth. Like, it's very luxurious to have everything you need at your fingertips and maybe some extra time, but then it's also very exciting and tantalizing to not have enough.
Terry Gilliam told me one time that when he was making the Holy Grail, that the original idea for one of the most famous scenes in the movie was to have all of King Arthur's men come over a hill on horseback. But he was making the entire movie for $1 million, and the horses were going to cost $20,000, and it just wasn't worth it. So he put them all on broomsticks and had someone behind them with a coconut making the sounds. And he said, now that's the scene that everybody remembers from the film. But if I had had money, they just all would have been on a horse, and we wouldn't have thought about that scene twice.
There you go.
Yeah. And have you seen this as well?
Well, I know it sounds weird, but for me, I have like kind of a sweet spot between $5 and $12 million.
Right.
12 million needing a really good A-list actor, and we have that privilege I think here in Canada. It really is a privilege to be able to have a lot of creative freedom if we made I proved some of our worth to do films, and it's really a privilege, and I don't expect to try to aim for 20 years. I was offered some scripts for half of them being superhero sequels, and I find that there's a beauty. I feel really privileged to have access to this, which is a lot of money, but at the same time, I can have a lot of freedom, of creative freedom with that.
So the creative freedom, though, is more important to you than the $50 million.
Absolutely, it's telling the story. I mean, especially nowadays with the new technologies and the low light sensitivity of the cameras such as the Alexa, it's like you can figure out a way to do your film. There is that bottom line where if you establish a certain universe in the script, you're just like not representing it, and that you can feel it at a certain point that there's a bottom line. But now there's a new toy that I got used to that I love. It's anamorphic lenses, and these are super expensive, but they're so nice. So now, add a couple of grand extra for the anamorphic lenses.
April, over the course of your 8 films, how has the technology changed, and has it made things easier for you? Has it affected the kinds of stories that you want to tell and allowed you to perhaps do movies that might have been out of your reach 10 years ago?
It's been phenomenal. I feel like I sort of entered as the growth to digital had happened, and we shot rock, paper, scissors on a P2, and the gigs were only 2 gig cards. So we were only allowed to shoot 6 minutes at a time.
Right.
So it was almost like a new hybrid of film, because you had to still change the reel, even though it was changing the P2 card. And then with 3D, obviously, it would have never been possible. We had 2 Red 1 cameras sitting horizontal and vertical on a quasar rig at the time, which was pretty much unheard of because we only had $1.5 million to make the film. So we had a beast of 100-pound rig to shoot 3D, to shoot true stereoscopic 3D. Right. And now I believe the cameras are only 8 pounds each, so it would be, to shoot a 3D film today would be completely different than it was 5 years ago. So it's incredible to watch the technology grow. And now even shooting with the Alexa, the way I can get those rich colors and the reds and the blues, that was never available when when we first started making feature films. It's been amazing to watch.
And Nathan, are you a tech head as well?
I'm not a tech head. I surround myself with people who really understand technology, but I shot my first film on 35.
Right.
And then I shot this one on digital.
It looks beautiful.
Yeah, well, fantastic cinematographer, fantastic colorist, and great new technology, you know, that really helped. And what was nice about shooting on digital is you don't have to be mindful of how many takes you're doing or how much film you're using, you know, because especially on low-budget films, you're constantly thinking about money that you're spending. Right. And so digital gives you more freedom. And it's really nice, and the camera's really light, and so it's great for the camera operator and the cinematographer. And it was really flexible and just really fantastic. And I even if I could afford to go back to 35 millimeter, there's no desire to. Yeah. It was really great.
Yeah, so no, you're not married to film. There's no nostalgic appeal for film for you at all?
No.
I feel nostalgic. I feel so nostalgic for it. I never got to shoot on it. It went before I saw it just vanish before my eyes.
You're a little nostalgic?
I'm a little nostalgic, but there's ways that because me and April are directing a TV series together. We were talking about different ways. Now I try to add little elements of analog texture to
like
films.
grain and that sort of thing?
Yeah, and one of my tricks that I learned is very cheap Chinese toilet paper. You rub them together before the take in front of the actor, and the light kind of glooms, and there's like the equivalent of grain, but it's dust. It's beautiful.
Just particles in the air?
Yeah. So they dared me to go on set with like a string and two toilet paper rolls, and like before each take, I just like rub my toilet paper in front of the lead actress. And I think I will do that. I will definitely do that.
I can't wait. I can't wait. I'll send pictures.
I wish we had some here now to have a look.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
So now I'm going to turn it over to the audience in just a second for questions, but I'm going to ask you now kind of sort of the big question of the day. What piece of advice would you give to someone who's made their first or second film now and is about to make a third one, maybe with an eye towards sitting up here next year or having their film accepted at Cannes or TIFF or wherever? April, I'll start with you.
Oh, me first.
I don't have to start with you.
I would say choosing the material is crucial.
Yeah.
Because once you start making films, your next film is really important on what you dedicate 2 to 3 years of your life to every project you do. So I find choosing the right script and making sure there's an audience out there waiting for something like that in terms of content, I feel like that's really important. And then also, personally, I really love to challenge myself. So maybe in a new genre or a new writer or some new material that really either scares you or excites you or both at the same time. I love to take that risk on something that's really special. The script has to be special because that's where the blueprint and everything begins. So if there's something on the page that really stands out to you and you can't stop thinking about it, like when you're laying at night, you just can't stop thinking of the images that you've read, then I would say go with that script. And then from there, you just have to dedicate and commit and stay focused. And no matter how hard it gets and how bumpy it gets through the funding, and you'll get some no's and you'll get some yeses. Don't give up on the project. If you believe in the script, don't ever give up on the project. And then never doubt your decision. Once you're stepping onto that train, I would say just ride the train right until the end and make sure you see it through every corner it takes.
And how many projects might you have going at the same time? Do you have more than one, or do you have, because I just see, it's like a puzzle. There's a little bit of funding here and a little bit, and so do you have several things happening at once, waiting for one to go, and then?
I've never really had several. I have very few, so like 1 or 2.
Right.
And I have the one I want to do next and the one I want to do in 5 years.
Right.
So just to be very mindful because of the time, and you need to really prepare a year in advance knowing that you want funding for that film in 2 years, so you sort of lay out the 5 years, although they're kind of malleable as well, because if something special and spectacular comes your way and all the pieces fit together quicker, you jump on board that. And then I love to do TV in the middle of it because it's refreshing and reminds me of that young spirit, and it moves really fast.
It's fast,
so
yeah.
I like doing that because it's concise, it's 3 weeks, and you have a lot of toys and a lot of friends, and it's really fun, and then it's over. And then you can commit yourself to a feature for a year and a half and really stay focused on that feature.
Nathan, what would your advice be?
Well, I've always been focused on one project at a time, and I've just, as I said, I've just finished my second, but I'm starting to rethink that strategy, and I'm starting to think it might be good to have one or two, kind of be mindful of two projects. This is really kind of the first time in my career, too, where I've been offered you know, after Cannes, I got a lot of scripts sent to me, and it's very tempting to get paid.
Yeah.
You know. Because you know, it's hard out there, right? And when you're making low-budget films, you know, you work for a long time, and if you get paid on that job, by the time you finish that job, you're out of money.
Right.
You know, so you start your festival tour, you're back on the credit card.
Yeah.
That's just that's the reality of indie living, right? And so you're on a credit card to your next film, and then you get your paycheck, you pay off your credit card. You know, so I'd like to live a little differently. That's my wish. But it's really important, like, you know, listening to Kim too, who's been offered some big projects, and I was meeting with Christian Manju yesterday, and who's a phenomenal filmmaker. And it's just about being passionate and really doing a project that you care about, because I figure after struggling for so long, to sell out now would be bad, you know? So it's like, I can live off the generosity of friends and family.
Yeah.
And my wife is a fabulous, well, she's my producer, and she cooks beautifully.
And
you
there's always food backstage at events
well,
like this,
that's it,
you know,
right?
so.
Filmmakers get invited to a lot of parties, so you get to eat a lot. But I would just say, as April was saying, just be, I guess our advice is to be passionate, you know, and what I hold on to is Joseph Campbell. Like, when I'm struggling out there, I'm just holding on to these meaningful mentors of mine, and he always just said, follow your bliss.
Yeah.
You know, you just stay true to it and don't let money get in the way. It's going to lead to happiness. So I'm trusting that, you know, and I'm happy doing what I'm doing. So,
Kim?
Yeah, I think it's like we all have our personalities. I think it's also, I think that, to me, one key element is to develop 2 to 3 scripts, work beyond 3 projects parallelly, because you never know which one, you know, because you don't know exactly when the zeitgeist of society will fit your story exactly. Right. So that's always that like intuition of like, I think it's there, but maybe it'll be a year later the zeitgeist will feel right for the story. And I do see some people that experience a lot of pain because they're too attached to doing that specific story, and they let a lot of other opportunities go meanwhile. So it's not about letting go too fast, but at the same time you can put it on the back burner, work on other stuff, and that can actually be a vehicle of convincing people that you're good at it and going to another, you know, to that script later. The one thing I think is that in the Canadian financing system, a good script can bring you a very long way. Right. If you have a good script, I mean, the institutions, I think maybe 70% of, you know, it'll say different on the cards, but the truth is maybe 70% of the funding is based on the quality of the script, I would say. And then after that, you know, you can work your way around the other 30%.
You're talking about having a couple of things going at the same time. You're finishing your next film right now. So 2 Lovers and a Bear, it's at Cannes, it's around, it's here, you're doing these, you must be doing press and that sort of thing, while you're finishing that other film. And are you already planning the next one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm here to have over the years, the thing I like is to have people who I connect with who you don't need to talk as much as you used to.
Right.
So, like, I work with Richard Como. He's really like a step above, like, he's really a master in editing. He's my editor. I consider the editor to be as much as a creative input in the film as a writer. I think it's like, so I have a lot, and Nicolas Bolduc as the DOP and Emmanuel Fréchette production designer. We don't need to talk as much anymore. So I do think that I can do films not faster, but like I can, you know, do like hand off the stick.
You're more nimble maybe than you were in terms of the way you work.
Well, I don't know, but
We'll see after the toilet paper how nimble he is.
The toilet paper is the takeaway here, I think. Do we have questions from the audience? We just have a few minutes left. Yeah, go ahead.
Hi, I'm just curious how, or either your first or your second film, how you found your scripts. Originally, did you write them, or did you work with people you knew?
I'll repeat so everyone can hear. For your first or second scripts, did you write them yourselves, or did it come from people that you knew or people that you worked with?
So for me, from the beginning of time, I partnered up with somebody that was fresh out of theater school because we wanted to start creating our own work. So he wrote the scripts we were producing together, and I directed. So it was like a really strong team and foundation, and we built together our company, our films grew bigger, and so did our talent. So it's been a 20-year relationship ongoing. So yeah, and sometimes it's work for hire, and great scripts come across your desk if you have an agent or you're looking and spying on what's happening in Canada.
I began in the business as a writer, so I wrote my first film. Mean Dreams was a script that was sent to me, and so that was a totally new and fresh experience, and it was really great too. So, but I'm writing my next project. So I've had the pleasure of doing both.
I read Sid Field and the Writer's Journey by another author, which my name goes blank, and I started writing scripts, but I do still believe in the 3-act structure, and I wrote
Robert
my first
McGee, is
scripts.
that it?
Sorry?
Robert McGee, is that McKee?
I
No,
think
what's his
so,
name?
yeah.
Robert McGee.
Vogler, thank you very much, Vogler.
And so you sorry.
And I wrote my first scripts, and now I do think that there are some collective websites of like the Blacklist and other smaller things that I think are really interesting for up-and-coming writers, as long as you keep in mind that just like Sid Field, these analyses tend to be very generic. So, but they can be useful as long as you keep in mind that it's like, basic ideas, concepts.
We just have time for one more question. Yeah, we'll go right here. Go ahead.
When working on
Here's a microphone for you. There we go.
when working with a smaller budget, it seems to me like at least in Canada, like a lot of the times, experts and like talent are expected not to get paid as much as they would like, or if they get paid at all. So my question is, how do you juggle the passion that you bring as a creator of a project to the project versus the people that aren't getting paid as much as they would like to be, and like how do you inspire their passion when you're not compensating them as they would like to get compensated?
That's a great question. When you step on set, if it's infectious, it just sort of happens that way. And if there's a positive vibe on set and you maintain that and you give them the freedom creatively to bring what they each can bring to the table and boost their creativity and what they do best and their voices, they tend to step on board as well. If they're creators, they want the project to be as best as it can, and they want their talents to shine. So if you're supportive and raise them up, and then there's a real team effort on set with a lot of positivity, and you feed them well, magic can happen. Yeah.
I think it's key to be really passionate about your material and ignite that fire, in your team, because igniting that fire is a rare experience for everybody, because if they're out there working on other things, it's often not for passion. So if they're doing an independent film, then hopefully they're passionate about it. So it's really important to keep that fire going, and I think that's the director and producer's job all the time, keep that fire going. And if they're getting paid less, and if they're not getting paid whatever, then I think, in my opinion, it's the producers and the director's responsibility to forfeit their salary and share it, because the director and the producer will benefit the most, ultimately from the film. So you share it with your crew, because it's unfortunate, as we all know, right? When the film's over, very, very few people stay to the end credits. And that we forget that those are the people that are like holding up that whole structure. So it's really important to treat them really well, respectfully. I think not to lose patience with anybody, especially if they're not working for top dollar. Be decent, be good, and passionate.
Yeah, I agree with all of that. think loyalty also is a way of retribution. You know, once you work, you make sure that when you get bigger budgets, you are faithful. As long as they're, I don't know, because loyalty, if you're good, I believe that in film you have to be, you know, if the person is not creatively competent, you shouldn't feel bad about, well, you will feel bad, but you should be at the service of the film if the person is not competent also.
That's all the time that we have. Mean Dreams is Nathan Morlando's film. You can see it when?
Tuesday night at 6 at the Ryerson, and Wednesday night at 10 at Scotiabank.
The Ryerson screening must be, there's like 2,000 people.
Yeah,
That's
and we're
crazy.
sold out.
And it's sold out,
actually.
wow.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Yeah. That's the team.
April Mullen's film is playing tonight, Below Her Mouth.
Isabel Bader.
So it's sold out, did you say so?
Yes, it is.
It's sold out. So you'll have to raise a fuss and get them to do more screenings so that you can go see it.
You should come and see the red carpet because it's so hot, it will melt you.
And Kim's film, Two Lovers and a Bear, plays when?
On Tuesday at 6:30.
At 6:30. So make sure you check out all these films, get out there and support them. And thank you very much for coming. It's been a pleasure to see
Thank
all
you
you.
for
And
coming.
thanks to you guys.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you both. Oh, thanks very much.